I think the interesting thing is I was introduced in karting at Shenningson at a tender age of about 6 or 7 years of age, and the phenomenal thing back then, and obviously we've got to go back 66 years for that. I'm a bit old now. Anyway, and when you're young you want to be old, and when you're old you want to be a little bit younger. But the point I want to make is that two things happened the first time I went out. I was going down the straight and it went quiet, and I thought my chain had fallen off. And then Marshall came running up, "You okay, you're okay?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "It's your chain's come off." And I was only a little chap, obviously. And he said, "A bit more of a problem." He said, "The whole engine fell off." The kart was so old, it just fell apart. But then a year or so later, I entered the British Championships at Little Rissington. And I went from 33rd on the grid up to 3rd before my engine seized with about 1 lap to go. And there was a scout there, the manager of the British team was there, and I got into the British team to go and race internationally in Holland. And it was only about my 3rd or 4th race. So I thought, well, this is pretty good. So I decided then at early age, motor racing was pretty neat, on top of being a fighter pilot with jets, on top of being a policeman, on top of being an astronaut. You know, what you do as a young lad, you dream, all your dreams you want to come true, but motor racing came to the fore. My father did karting himself for a while, and it was a natural progression. He bought a faster kart, which was one-wheel drive back then, because we're going back to the late 50s, and so it didn't have a straight-through axle. And amazing, I remember the chain was on the right-hand side, so going around left-handers, it was quite quick. But if you went around a right-hander, it almost stopped, because, you know, the strain on the one wheel. And we had a lot of fun, and back then I used to drive up and down the pavement on the roads, and then the police would bring me back home. The police in those days, you respected the policeman, and you know, when I was born there was only about 2 billion people in the world, so there's a lot of empty spaces to have fun. So, you know, I turned myself into a fantastic engineer, I think at about 7 years of age, because I decided to lift my handlebars up and turn them around the wrong way, which was really good. But I forgot one salient point. So I went out onto the road and turned like this onto the main dual carriageway. And the handlebars turned good, but the front wheel didn't, so I forgot to tighten it up. And I fell off in the middle of the road, and with a double-decker bus coming. And lo and behold, there was another policeman close by who saw what happened, and he took me home again. The toughest obstacles initially is always yourself. I think a lot of people, even at early ages, you set yourself up with obstacles that are not there, or you doubt yourself, or you set yourself up to fail, you don't set yourself up to succeed. So that was the biggest personal obstacle, to realise that anything could be achieved, you can live your dreams, but then, you know, focus on what really matters, focus on the things that are going to make a difference. And I think that's the same in business. So I'm a better sportsman than a businessman, but yeah, I know what to do with sport, but business is a tougher one. The single greatest achievement is being here tonight talking to you. There's not many drivers who have broken their neck, 3rd, 4th, 5th vertebra, broken their back 3 times, 148 stitches down the spine, smashed wrist, complete shoulder replacement, bolt titanium, all the feet are all smashed and broken, bleed on the brain, loads of other things I won't bore you with. There's nothing in me anymore, everything's fallen apart, you know. Even my surgeon says, "Don't worry, Nigel, now, there's nothing else in there to go wrong." It's fantastic. So the single greatest achievement, they're paralleled, I have to say, and I'm not joking with this. Being alive, in my day, a lot of people died. A lot of people died. A lot of dear friends died. But we've just celebrated, Rosanna and I, 50 years of marriage. We've been together 56 years. We're coming up 51 years of marriage now in a few months. That's one of the greatest achievements anyone can have in life. It's pretty tough, because in 1977, I think it was September, I was in hospital in Brands Hatch. I just got pole position, and I was pushed off on the slowing down lap. It was half wet and half dry. I went backwards. It was my first outing in the Crosley. John Crosley gave me a car, and Minister engines. Went backwards into a guardrail, didn't have any headrest. I hit the guardrail 100 something mile an hour, and the neck just did that and just snapped. And the problem with that, you say that quickly, it's one of them, but no feelings in the legs, no feelings in the arms for almost a week, and I was almost like quadriplegic. And so when I was in hospital, that was a tough one, because no one visited me. Even my parents couldn't get down because they were working and everything else. I was married at the time. So it was probably one of the most horriblest times. That was the toughest accident I had, I think. For me, the guys who started it off 75 years ago, and I was singing out someone like Fangio and Sterling Moss. They, for me, were the greatest heroes of Grand Prix racing back then for many, many reasons. So Fangio jumps out at me because you had 50%, every time you had an accident back then, it's 50% whether you lived or died. No seat belts, no helmets, sometimes no goggles, you know, and, you know, you got all the fuel cell around your body here. They're astonishing. The cars were terribly flimsy and reliable. There's no safety, was there, back then? So obviously I've got to, I think everybody should congratulate Sir Jackie Stewart for working so hard and tirelessly all the years to bring safety into Formula One like it never was before. And then other people subsequently following Jackie and then developing it all through. Certainly the 60s and 70s were very tough, but then the 80s were still tough, and the 90s was catastrophic. One weekend, 2 drivers losing their lives with Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna. And then basically from then on in, the manufacturers, the FIA, did the most fantastic job. So getting back to the drivers, there's so many drivers in different ages, different facets. But yeah, the early drivers, I think they deserve the recognition of being probably the bravest, because the drivers today are fantastic, but they don't have to be brave, because the barriers are moved back. You know, they run off, and some of them say, oh, there's not much grip off the circuit. Well, the circuit was here and the barriers were there in my day, so if you went off the circuit, you had a big crash. No, I never forget, it was 1989, on the warm-up just before the race in Rio de Janeiro, Jacapaca circuit, I only did four corners, and the car stopped on the corner. And the fans were so generous. I had many drinks thrown at me, a few bricks and a few other things. And so when I saw Ayrton there in club and they were giving him a bit of a roasting, I picked him up, yeah. It was an iconic moment. I didn't realise what I was doing, but it was one of the most iconic moments, called the taxi driver. I had a real close relationship with the Red Arrows, flew with them an awful lot. Red 5, I managed to get 5 on my car, and I wanted it red, and had a few arguments with the team, and eventually got Red 5, and then started to win races, and then I won the 2 World Championships back to back with Formula 1 and IndyCar with Red 5. And I've had Red 5, if you look back in one of my books, most amazing coincidence, 2 numbers have been through my whole life. Red 5, and guess what? Number 44. And I had them long before Lewis was born. So it's fantastic that he's been carrying 44. And when I was racing in Holland, international kart race, guess what my number was? Number 5. So there's a lot of history to it, so I'm proud that it worked very well. It's got to be Ferrari. You know, you go there and say, oh, that's a beautiful Ducati over there, just walk past, and a week later a new Ducati arrives at home. And then I was testing there a few weeks after that, and they wanted me to test a new Testarossa with a suspension on the test track, which I did, and I just said, look, I said, you need to, it's a bit too pointy, you know, people might be able to spin it on the roads a bit more. Just put a bit of understeer in the car, I think it'd be like so, but the car's fantastic. 2 weeks later, a new Testarossa came, for no money, free, you know, it's fantastic. What did I have from Williams? And then I found the limit with Ferrari, because we were testing there and we were late going down to test at Lisbon. As you know, I'm a jet pilot. And they said, Nigel, would you like to fly the big 3-engined plane down to Lisbon, you see? And I said, oh, it'd be fantastic. So I was in the left-hand seat, flew it all the way down there. Plane at that point, and we're talking back in the 80s now, worth about $34 million. And I got, I said to the captain, I said, please tell Mr. Agnelli and that, I said, this plane is just magnificent, it's beautiful. You know what, there's a limit to the generosity, I'm still waiting for it. But look, Williams is a great team. Ferrari is just something out there special. They can do things that not a lot of other teams can. I had a great time with Williams, and yeah, but I didn't really receive too many gifts. Oh, I did get one gift, win the World Championship and get fired. Sorry. It was very painful. First race was great. I was at Surfers Paradise in Australia. They made me have learner stripes on the back of the car, and I was a reigning world champion, so that was a bit of an indignation. So I qualified on pole position. I said to the organisers and the chiefs, stewards, look, can I take my learner stripes off now? I'm on pole position. No, okay. So then I went out and They black flagged me, called me into the pits for a stop-go penalty, and I still went out, caught the leaders and won the race. So then I said to them afterwards, I said, can I have my stripes off now? They said, no. Okay, fine. So I made history, pole position, winning the first race. No one's ever done that before. So then second race, I mess up. I go backwards into the wall at 220 miles an hour in Phoenix, but I'm the only driver, living driver in history, or the only driver in history that punched a 3-foot hole in a 3-foot thick concrete wall. But the percussion through the car and the shock wave made a really bad mess of my back and my spine. And so they didn't know how to put me back together for a long time, because nobody had ever lived past an accident like that, because all the doctors and Terry Trammell was fantastic, who pieced me back together with Mike Piazza and George Morris III, who was the most fantastic orthopedic surgeon. I had 3 surgeons operating on me. And the only thing they'd got to go on, because they'd never put anyone back together, because when they've seen this injury before, it's when planes crash and hit the ground, and it's the shearing force that just separates the back to the spine and everything else. And of course no one had lived. I was the first living person to try and repair. So they made a good job, and they took 148 stitches to sew me back up down my bottom part of my lumbar spine. And then the crazy thing, after 10 days being on the slab, I was qualifying in Indy pulling 5G with 148 stitches in my back. And it was going around some of the corners. It was mental. But we qualified, had another couple of weeks off before the race, and it wasn't too bad. But Terry Trammell and Mike Piazza, and unfortunately George has passed over. Thanks ever so much. They did a fantastic job. That's easy, real quick, golf. I love golf. It doesn't like me at times, but I love golf. Even with all my injuries, I can have some special games. I've won a lot of amateur stuff. I've won 5 senior world championships around America and that. Lots of club championships all around the world. Lots of individual medal plays. Some of the proudest golf I've had was at St Andrews with the RNA. I won 3 medals up there, shooting in the 60s, high 60s. And then one of the proudest moments I had on the PGA Tour when I was at Royal St David's in Harlech with the senior tour with 80 pros and myself. I had the second best score on the last day. I shot 66, and it was the second best score of the day. I was very proud of that. And apparently, so the other pros who played with me the last day said, you should have shot 63. I said, I'm happy with the 66. So golf, I love it. I've been proud. I played with Seve Ballesteros in PGA tournaments. I played in the Australian Open back in '88, where the press were really quite horrible to me, saying I wouldn't break 100, wouldn't break 90. The world number 1, Ian Woosnam at the time, I think shot 75. I shot 77 first round, so that was fantastic. And to have that experience, you feel so naked on the tee. You know, going down the straight at 220, 230 miles an hour, or 250 at Indianapolis, you're hiding in a helmet and that, you know. But you're naked on a golf course. People can see you, you know. And it was, but I got into red figures after 6 holes. And then I was so nervous, on the 7th hole I duck-tucked it in a bush, made a double bogey, and then I relaxed again then. I'm a huge fan of all sports, and I mean all sports. I can watch all sports and enjoy whatever it is. I went in my heyday to lots of charity events for different charities, and I love supporting charities. And I've been proud to be president of UK Youth in England for the last 26 years. And you say that quickly, well, what does that mean? Well, I follow the Duke of Westminster. How do you follow someone like that? It's absolutely amazing. So we've worked very hard with that charity, but what we've got here, like Wayne Rooney's shoe up there, I can remember, it was at Dubai, it was at the Emirates Country Club. There was a charity evening put on by the organisers, and we brought that boot, which was the golden boot of the World Championships that scored the goal. Got a picture of him there and everything else. I'm not going to tell you how much I paid for it, because I was obviously very loony then, far too much. Because our collection was so massive and it's all personal to me. And you really worry about the future of it and what to do, and the insurance, and you know, if things, you know, the biggest thing that worried me is the building it was in. A lot of it was wood and all the rest of it. If it burnt down, you lost everything, and you can't replace any of this. And then it came to me that my biggest supporters throughout my career in the world was what? And everybody knows this is true, it was the fans. And I had this wonderful epiphany thinking, you know what? there's something there for any fan in the world, you know, from being the most glorious winning trophy to a little snippet here and everything else, which meant a lot to me, that they can afford. And I know they'll be proud of it and be the custodians of it. They can pass down to the family or friends or whatever they want to do. So it was like having this incredible, it was like an epiphany. This is the way to do it. And I'm so proud that it's spread throughout the whole world, and this is the last little bit of it now. They're all synonymous to me, but obviously the personal stuff which I've won myself or worn myself or been part of my career. Do you know, even going back to early 60s, I was winning trophies regularly, and they're like only this big. They mean just as much to me as the big ones. So, because it was the beginning of my career, so, and there might be a few of those still around because people don't know the value of them. But you know, a lot of them got the dates on, and it's very special. I think there's a lot of things. I've still got some incredibly special things. Gary Player's putter from winning the Masters. I got a samurai sword, which is very special and very old, 600 years old, which is worth an awful lot of money. And I'm not letting those go because you wouldn't get the proper value for them. But there's a lot of things which are tricky. I think tricky things to sell they are, which I've still got. But there's some fantastic oil paintings we've got as well, which we still haven't put on auction yet, but eventually that will come out as well. But there's a story to all of them. There's a fantastic story to all of them. Well, this might be an early one, and I'll tell you why it's an early one. Because if it's a podium cap, it should have some identity on it. So, you know, that's a generic cap. The only thing that it's different, it's got the gold band round, which means it's a winner's hat at the time when I won it. But that's probably, to date it, I'm not quite sure. But it certainly has a lot of history, probably in the 80s. Goodyear were a fantastic tyre manufacturer. And you know, we won some races, and some of the early races with Goodyear. I think the most amazing thing back in the 80s is that you had Michelin, you had Goodyear, you had Pirelli, and I think there's even another manufacturer at times. There's 3 or 4 different manufacturers of tyres, and some tyres suited some circuits and some temperatures better than others. So, but Goodyear, they worked so hard, and I'm so grateful to win the World Championship with Goodyear. This is a replica, but it's a proper replica. This has got how I used to wear them, and obviously this was with McLaren, or sorry, with Ferrari. I think the incredible thing is, not many drivers did this, but I painted this helmet. So probably over 40 years we've had this, and people, as you know, if you haven't got paintants or protectants, they can make everything up. And we've had so many instances where people make models or do pamphlets or whatever and have my helmet. So I call them up and say, I've got a patent for that. Thank you. Really? No, it makes life interesting. Even to today, it's painted here throughout the world, and it's very good because we don't get much from it, but it's just nice to own your own helmet style and everything else, which is good. So it's literally a one-off for 40 odd years. It's special because it's red, white and blue. I'm British through and through. I'm very proud. You know, it's a royal blue, it's everything, and great job. And the reason I have this here is so I can focus my eyesight here. A lot of people have it up here, but then your eyes are not focusing where you want to go. So I always use this focus on the corners better, which gave me a little bit of advantage. And I didn't like any glare. So yeah, a few drivers should try it. So it's a Rookie of the Year trophy, and obviously it's a huge compliment. And obviously Rookie of the Year, Champion of the Year, the only guy in the world, so this is how valuable this is now, the only Grand Prix driver, IndyCar driver in the world to have won both titles together, and there's 4 in the world. Emerson Fittipaldi, Jacques Villeneuve, Mario Andretti and myself, but only one of the 4 that held the 2 World Championships simultaneously for about 3 weeks. So that's a unique bit of what I call freak history. And this trophy can signify one part of it. These are signed as well, and good old signatures not changed over all the years. Look, full signatures as well. You've got to be have time to do that signature when you do a full signature. Otherwise, it's an N and then Mansell and red 5 because it takes a bit of style. But the thing I love about the collection is there's things like the hat and the shoes and that hopefully the fans can get for what I call a good price. Hopefully it won't be inflated too much. I don't want to give it away, obviously, but what I'm saying is that I think it should create a lot of interest. And these are actually quite comfortable. They're really, really nice. In fact, these might not be for sale. Yeah, we're raising millions, of which we've already donated many hundreds of thousands personally as a Mansell family in slices of donations. So the biggest one was $250,000, and then we've just donated since then a lot more. And next year, I've already planned, because I'm working a lot next year and I'm donating all my earnings next year to UK Youth. And we're calculating at the moment with what I'm going to be doing with the time, that hopefully 400 up to 500,000 pounds next year again as well. And then we're going to get hopefully donations as well on top of that. And so we hopefully might be even start to get out the ground at the end of 2026. But you know, I can't do it on my own. But I'm making a good headway. And you know, when you think we can help young children, because people make mistakes, and you know, to incarcerate somebody, because we help children from a young age, 6 up to 26 years of age. You can incarcerate somebody, yeah, and it costs something like what it used to, last time I saw, about 120,000 a year. Whereas if you educate somebody, it only costs about 14,000 a year to make better life choices. You know, everyone has dreams, and you can fulfill those dreams as long as you're getting a helping hand. And UK Youth, you know, gives them opportunities, give them direction, give them counselling. UK Youth do the most amazing job, and I've got to take this opportunity. The team at UK Youth are just incredible people, and the charities. I've been president for coming up 27 years now, but before then I was with them with Save the Children. So I go back with the charity and youth clubs over 40 years now, and so it's very dear to my heart. And to see people who have drug problems, drink problems, they're on the streets, that's all I say, and you get them off the streets. We had a lovely young lady who 17, 18 years of age with 3 children with 3 different fathers, and she became one of the most marvellous spokespersons for UK Youth, saying life doesn't have to be like this. And yeah, we've got amazing success stories. 14B obviously is a championship winning car, which is great. I have to say my favourite car of all time was the FW11B, and the reason for that was we had turbo engines then, which in qualifying we had about 1,500 horsepower, wheel spin in 6th, 7th gear, 180 miles an hour, no traction control. The things were a beast. Every corner you came to, Martin Bundle got it right many years ago and said, these things are incredible. Every corner you come to, they want to try and kill you. I mean, it was a arm job like there's no tomorrow, hanging onto it, and there's no power steering back then, so unless you had muscles here, and all the drivers of that day got shoulder problems, I think, but you had to hang on, and then the wall was just there, and then it twitched in the corner. If you didn't have the power to catch the slide or whatever, you're in the barriers. So, you know, drivers are great today, and it's not against them because the tracks have been made so much safer, but they don't have to worry about that in most places. Yeah, I'd like to do it so I can see it's all gone to a good home. You have your mortality touched a few times to share with you, because I'm fine now. But a few years ago, I was playing golf out in California, and my bowel perforated, and I was fighting for my life and took a big section away, and it was probably the worst experience I've had to get back from that. But I'm still here. And then the funny thing happened about a year ago. I was playing golf again, you know, a few cramps, you know, everything else in the stomach, and again. So I called my doctor up, who's a dear friend who saved my life, said, And I need some medicine. I think there's a few problems. He said, oh, I'm between operations, come and see me. So I went there. Fortunately, Roseanne came with me, just to get some pills or some liquid to make sure that everything's working. And he said, Nigel, you got less than an hour to live. I said, why? I said, what medicine can you give me? He said, your appendix has burst and your gallbladder's out of life. So I had, look, the great news, I had 2 operations for the price of 1. He saved my life. But the scary thing, when that happens, if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. So the truthful answer, and then that's why I'm telling the fans the truth, which I've always done. You have your mortality touch when things happen like that. And I want these things to feel comfortable, they're going to good homes. And that's why I've done it. And there's a lot of benefits happening. Other than Roseanne and myself, the fans are benefiting and UK youth have benefited. So that's where that first big chunk of money came from as well. The fans I had and still have, I think, the energy that was back then, because they can't do it today. The early days, you didn't have tickets to go in the pits. The pits wasn't like a prison. Sorry, it's not a prison, of course. It's just through security and everything else and the evolution. But the fans could almost go up to the cars and touch them. It's impossible to do that today, and I understand that. But it's a different era altogether. And to be part of that and have those memories is something incredibly special. And for my career, starting literally in the late 50s, early 60s, all the way through then to the mid-90s in Formula One, and then past that into other things. It's just special to, I think, have a bit of history like all the stuff I brought with the memorabilia. It's lovely to be, buying that boot that Wayne really got the golden goal with. And you got to be focused, but not too focused. Enjoy the moment, because it passes really quickly. I think when you're young, you're charging on as quick as you can, and sometimes you miss a few things. You need to savor the moment and learn so you can repeat. We all have a great system when we start winning, and I was very superstitious, so I'd repeat what I did for the success. And it's just from meals to what time you go to bed, what time you get up, the exercising, the routine in the gym, and various things, the food at the circuit, the routine before you get in the car. You always get in the car one way, out the car the other way. I wasn't crazy superstitious, but I had enough of them to respect. And those kinds of things, I think. You have to fathom out at different ages what actually works. And everyone's different. But don't knock it if it works for you, embrace it. The biggest thing I'm proud of is the fans. Biggest thing I'm proud of is UK youth. The proudest moment is Silverstone, 1987, coming from 24 seconds behind and being told to slow down with a few laps to go and winning the race, and fans going wild and coming on the circuit. And yeah, for me, the fans and some of the charities of this great country, how we help people. And for me, because I'm aligned to it, obviously, is UK Youth is one of the most wonderful charities you could wish to be part of.